It's fine. We've all had kind of a shit year this year, so, like, I'm not even mad. I'm just like, okay, that happened. Well,
Sometimes you just need a recenter. I've been taking some time. I've been working on myself. I've been practicing my fine motor skills before I get back in the dating pool.
Well, that's good.
And you got to make it fun, like picking up eating M&Ms with chopsticks.
Is that how you're doing
I like
it?
that.
Yeah, you try and balance like a golf ball on a plate.
Okay. Working on the fine motor skills.
Yeah. Next, we'll work on the gross motor skills.
That's fair. That's why all the guitars.
Oh, gross motor skills is more like bicycling, lifting. It's like large. It's the use of your larger muscles. Fine motor skills is the little muscles.
What's mega motor skills?
You know about Mega Milk?
No, Hunter, what the fuck?
No.
Hi, and welcome to Blank Body. It's a Vampire the Masquerade V5 tabletop and horror podcast. I'm your host, Hunter, and as always, I'm joined by...
We're not doing the milk, John.
Not until we hit $500 a month, and then you fuckers can torture me with the milk episode. I already got through the corn.
Yep.
Dairies later.
$500 a month. And we'll do a milk episode.
We're at like 300 right now. We're getting there, and it's terrifying.
Yep.
Yep, under 200 away now.
Fuck. It's just gonna manifest. Anyways, hi, I'm Sarah.
And we're talking about some things that, people can drink, but a lot like milk, some people look down on it, and a lot of people think it's pretty gross.
Like most people are actually lactose intolerant. Like that's the normal state of people. I think it'd be really, really funny if there was a kindred that like tried to commit Diablerie and realized that they were like soul intolerant and they just couldn't do it.
Oh, they had an upset stomach for like the next, year.
Yeah. We're talking about Diablerie, guys.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
I mean, it's a bit of a bummer.
It's a bit of a bummer.
It depends. I'm going to put that in the depends category. Depends who's getting it.
I mean,
and who's doing the eating.
I'm going to say it's bad all around, but
we're
going to talk about Diablerie, what it is, why is it bad,
maybe you
and
can
what are
change
the
my
benefits. Yeah, I probably will.
Okay.
Content warning. Descriptions paralleling sexual and physical assault, existential annihilation, addiction, damnation, and religious themes.
I'm going to add cannibalism in there, too.
Yeah, let's add cannibalism in there.
Probably body horror.
Yeah.
And blood.
Yeah.
We don't really get by a whole episode of the show without a little body horror and blood, though.
Yeah.
That's fair.
But yeah, if any of that seems like a little heavy spaghetti for you,
maybe don't.
You can have a fruit snack, come back to it later. It is all good.
Go listen to, I don't know.
You were going somewhere really fast and then just lost it.
I lost it. It just went whoosh in a completely different direction. Go listen to another episode.
Yeah,
that'll be a fun one.
Go to the drug blood episode. That one's more fun.
There you go.
Party Hardy, USA. The sources for this book are the V5 core book, the Children of Blood book, Cults of the Blood Gods, Awakening, Diablerie Mexico, Bloody Hearts, Diablerie Britain, Clan Book Assamite Revised, the Dark Ages core book, Dark Ages 20th Anniversary, Encyclopedia Vampirica, the V5 Camarilla book, the V5 Second Inquisition, and the Black Hand, the Guide to the Talmehra.
That's a few books.
That's a few books. I did a bunch of reading, guys.
Woo. Yay.
Woo! Research. Also, I'm noting this right now while doing the research. I do have Vindication.
Bum, bum, bum.
Small TLDR about Sarah. I am technically in the World of Darkness Discord server, like the official one. I refused to interact with it because the one time I did, I had a bunch of people chew me out because I dares to suggest that a storyteller has the option of providing their players a map during combat so people could know where they were in a space as a shorthand. And I got chewed out so hard, I've just refused to go back into that Discord server. Turns out, the Awakening, Diablerie Mexico book fucking has maps in it for a dungeon crawl for a vampire game.
Yeah, there's a couple of those, I think.
Yeah.
I love this.
I know the Succubus Club adventure book has maps, too.
Yeah. Oh my god. And it's not like a D&D one where there's grids and you only have, like, movement speeds. It was just, like, a little isometric, like, hey, guys, here's the layout of, like, this level of the pyramid that you're going through, and here's the layout of this layer.
Yeah.
You can mind theater the rest of it. It's just, just everybody knows who's in what room.
It's super duper helpful.
It's super fucking helpful.
Super duper helpful. I love it.
If you like my mind's eye theater, theater of the mind, great, fantastic. Sometimes dipshits don't know which room has a west wall and an east wall.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's easy to just go, here's a box, treasure's on this side, guards are here. How do you go from mirror to mirror?
Right.
Anyway, sorry guys, that was just a small little like...
No, I love heist planning, and one of the most essential parts to heist planning is a map.
Yep.
Yeah, but the cool thing was this adventure has your players going through the Aztec pyramid of... Oh, God, I had this yesterday and I forgot it. Mictlantecutli?
Sounds right to me.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I butchered that. I am very white, and I apologize. But is the Aztec god of death and ruler of the underworld. And the pyramids are probably from sometime 14th to 16th century. So, you know, if you want to do, like, a cool Indiana Jones thing, hell yeah. Anyways, so, Diablerie. What is its definition? What is? Diablerie. God, it's going to sound like we're having strokes throughout all of this, and I apologize. You had a couple.
Similar to a stroke.
Yeah, similar.
Not quite.
Not quite. Thank God for that, honestly.
Sounds very different. Doesn't quite sound like you're saying Diablerie wrong,
I will say. Yeah, that's fair. Diablerie, the word comes from the French word of diable, which is the Latin diabolus, meaning devil, plus the eerie, meaning of or practice of, typically in the context of a craft or a profession.
Yeah, you do Diablerie, right?
I mean, I like some metal satanic aesthetic, but, you know.
We ain't calling on no demons.
Maiden's blood.
Diablo's a really good game. Well,
Diablo is a good game.
Diablo 2, I think, was the best one.
I enjoyed Diablo 3. I enjoyed it.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's good.
But yeah, for more context, Diablerie involves drinking another vampire dry, ingesting not only their blood, but their very essence. Vampires with a religious bent speak of consuming the victim's very soul. This is from the core book, page 234.
Pretty brutal.
Yeah, so this is not just like, hey, I'm gonna sip from another vampire and maybe get a blood bond and like be cheeky, and this is the... No, this goes much further than that.
So maybe we should clear it up here and now.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've heard this misconception. Diablerie, is it just drinking another vampire completely dry in the same way that you would drain a human to death to get that last box? Or you actually have to more than drink them?
There's more steps, and we do get into that.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because that phrasing was a little...
Yeah, when you, like, more thoroughly understand the mechanics and then what the, like, lore implications is of doing this act, you just go, oh, that's why everybody's upsetty spaghetti.
Okay.
Yeah. But some other fun things. So those who commit this act are referred to as Diabolist. There's also another term in the books to refer to this called Amaranth, and this is an homage to the earliest recorded victim of Diablerie.
Oh. I think you shared a snippet of them with us.
Yeah, I've talked about it like a smidgy in the Toreador episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is an ancient Toreador Methuselah with the name of Amarantha, who is a direct childler of Arakel. So this is like 4 steps down.
Got it.
And it said that they were consumed by a Banu Hakim judge as punishment for her crimes.
Oh.
Yeah, as the Banu Hakim will note on their side of the situation, this particular judge had a quote-unquote lapse of control while administering such punishment.
Huh.
Yeah, which I'm like, that's not good, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's... I guess I should have mentioned in retrospect, I probably should have mentioned a content warning about police brutality.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's kind of in that vein.
In that vein.
When you have a whole clan that's basically Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There are notes of a red orchid being left as a warning to victims of Diablerie a week before the act is done during the Middle Ages, according to the Encyclopedia Vampirica. That is the only place that says this, though.
Like, we're gonna fucking eat you.
Yeah.
Watch out. That's brutal.
So brutal. It's like, I'm gonna do it.
I don't know the origin, but I know there are stories of red orchids being like a warning or a like bad sign in other folklore, so maybe they were just pulling from that. I would have to look more into that.
I don't know much about that. I did go down a whole rabbit hole about the actual plant called the amaranth. It's also known as pigweed.
Pigweed.
Ooh, pigweed.
Yeah.
That's a cute
Smoke
name.
some pigweed.
And this is a leafy green that has species that can produce a grain that is often sold in the West as a superfood. Their seeds are also sold as like bird food sometimes.
Huh.
There was a lot of articles I found about this grain being grown in like Africa and some of the Mediterranean, and all the stuff people say about quinoa was kind of being said about this as well.
Cool.
But but it's also a red flower that's been around since ancient times. Like wreaths of this were left for like fallen ancient Greek heroes back in the day.
Cool.
Because the flower is associated with immortality, death, and rebirth.
Nice.
Yeah, kind of a cool thing.
Plants are cool.
Plants are cool. There was mention in the book of a red bird in Africa that's also called an amaranth. I couldn't fucking find this goddamn bird.
Oh.
Like, I just was Googling, like, red bird, Africa, amaranth, and, like, a bunch of different search engines.
Nothing.
Yeah, so I don't know who was on what drug, or if I'm just bad at research.
Well, I would guess you're probably not bad at research. Maybe there was one of them.
Maybe? I don't know. It was just, I couldn't find anything, though.
Or maybe someone was just saying that they had a bird named Amaranth.
Mm-hmm.
And it was red.
That's true.
And they lived in Africa.
And it's true, Africa is a big place.
So,
Speaking of the red orchid, I did a quick Googling. This is a look that up, Jamie moment. So this is not deep research. But from what I could find, the orchid in spiritual uses means personal growth, enlightenment, or harmony. So, yeah.
That is such a weird read to be like, hope you find harmony, brother.
yeah.
I'm gonna eat you.
I'm about to personally grow and gain some enlightenment.
Oh, fuck. Right? I'm just like, that is a burn.
Yeah.
So, all of this could be bullshit, because, vampire lore, it's made
Who
up.
knows? Yeah.
Someone could have just thought it sounded cool.
Yeah. But the alternate term for Diablerie being amaranth could come from the Greek amaranthos, meaning unfading. Which could be a reference to the stains that doing Diablerie leaves upon the perpetrator's soul.
Mm-hmm.
So who the fuck knows? Run with this how you will in your game. Hurrah. So, what does Diablerie do? I have a quote. Do either of you guys want to read it?
I haven't done a quote in a while.
Do
I'll
it.
give it a quote.
Hell yeah.
I gotta clear my reading voice.
Oh my god. Gotta take a sippy. Oh my god, he actually has a throat spray? When did you get a throat spray?
I've had it the whole time.
He's had it the whole time.
I know you have those, like,
I usually just
sniffing lozenges.
I usually just remember to do it before the episode, but now there's a increase in the middle episodes. The quote will sound better, but I'm ruining it by talking now.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Do you need a respray?
No, that's good.
Let me see it. I want to spray.
Hold on. Let me read this quote. We do not merely feed upon the mortals. Some of us feed upon one another. Some do it out of need. They can no longer survive on the thin mortal vitae. Others do it out of desire. For they seek the power of their elders. The war between my people is cannibalistic and horrific conflict indeed. The young hunt the old, not for wisdom, but for power. That's from Critias, Clan Bruja, Awakening, page 7.
Yeah. Reading that Diablerie adventure was like really fucking metal.
I know we're doing Bruja next, but hasn't Critias come up before?
Critias is a major NPC in the Chicago by Night setting.
Okay.
So we will cover that on those episodes soon.
I think he overlapped with one of the other clans we talked about too, but we've done a lot of these episodes, so my memory is not.
Yeah, then also NPCs, like major canonical ones, like interact with each other through all sorts of things and just like, Jesus fucking Christ.
Mm-hmm.
That's a spaghetti board right
It's
there.
a spaghetti board. It is. So, there are several potential reasons or quote-unquote benefits for doing a Diablerie. First one that isn't so much highlighted in current canon, like in the text, but it seems that players and other people just kind of have continued this tradition, so I'm going to mention it from the older texts. What is referred to as rapture, which is the highly ecstatic sensation that comes from draining a victim to final death. Those who commit the act of Diablerie are said to feel the most intense form of rapture. So, yeah, when you drain a person to death and you go to Hunger Zero and your beast is quiet and they're just like, oh yeah, that feels really good. It's about as close as vampires get to sex. Mm-hmm. It's even better if you do it to another vampire.
Yeah.
It's bestest, apparently, if you do it and you also eat their essence of existence.
Damn.
Yeah, which is, I would like to say, kind of fucked up.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit. There's another quote. Do you want to read that one, Skipper?
That was long. Give me the spray.
Here, I'll give you a squirt.
Give him a squirt.
I don't trust you.
Give the
at
boy a
all.
little squirt.
I don't trust you.
You gotta drop that jaw. Tongue to the bottom.
I don't like.
You gotta hit the back of the throat, buddy.
I can do it.
No, I got you.
I can do it.
This has been on my mouth. You don't want to touch it.
Do you want a trust spray? Does it taste bad?
It also helps with immune support.
Oh, look,
This
John,
stuff is gross.
You've been supported.
Woo!
I mean, it's mostly echinacea and sage and some St. John's wort. It's got some of your wort.
Hell yeah, I'm a saint.
You sound about the same.
To the feeder.
Fuck. Anyways. Sorry, editing Hunter.
To the feeder, it seems she is still drinking blood, but blood so pure and powerful it could well be liquid fire. This burning is indescribable pleasure, so piercing it becomes agony, or pain so sweet it becomes ecstasy. Throughout the inspiration, the Diabolist can hear a sound like the tolling of a great and distant bell, slowing down and diminishing in volume until the moment the victim suffers final death. So racking is the pleasure that the Diabolist is incapable of muffling a cry of exaltation. This moment is known as the rebirth. And that's from Awakening, and that's page 10 this time.
Damn, 3 pages apart.
Right.
They really were talking about some Diablerie.
Yeah, so there's descriptions of the people who are committing the Diablerie. It gets very horny.
Yeah.
It'll fall into like a Hellraiser level of like horny. So
I can see that.
Yeah, if that's something you're cool with describing, cool. If that like crosses a line or a veil, you can behind the curtain that if you need to, calibrate as you need.
Yeah, if one of your players does it, you can always just send them a DM because no one else is gonna know how they're feeling anyway.
Yeah, that is the secret horny post that nobody at the table has to deal with, and then the player has to deal with the ramifications of their terrible choice.
Oh fuck! Why?
Oh no. Getting a secret DM from your ST is always just like, oh, this is cool. Oh no.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are several cases of many vampires that will chase this high in particular, whether they actually would gain the other benefits from committing Diablerie or not.
Mm-hmm.
So even if they're just like, okay, well, I'm not eating lower gen, they're eating the same gen or higher, they're just like, look, I just like feeling something.
Right.
And if somebody else has to die for it, and I'm just like, that's fucked up.
Brutal.
That's not a good time. Other kindred will also do this to gain knowledge and or power. I'll take a turn reading this one.
Get it.
Yeah.
You want the spray?
No, I don't need the spray.
Tastes pretty good.
It does not.
I like it. Sarah would like it. We like gin.
I tend to like bitter and herbaceous things.
I like herbaceous things.
That was garbage, though.
It was.
I'm so
I
sorry,
used to
John.
complain when I'd listen to Herb Alpert all the time.
Okay, well, still.
A contest of humanity plus blood potency versus the victim's resolve and blood potency will be done during a Diablerie attempt. Every success gives the Diablers 5 experience points to immediately spend on increasing their blood potency to a maximum of the victim's blood potency or on disciplines known by the victim. This is Core Book, page 235. And also, if the victim is of a lower generation, the Diablers lowers their generation by 1.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't matter how much more powerful they are. It's just if they are, you go up 1 step.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of how the mechanics is now. I have some notes, though, unfortunately. In previous editions, a vampire could lower their generation by more than 1 step based on a series of stamina rolls if the difference between the 2 vampires was more than 1 step of generation.
Okay.
So if you want to house rule something, I can't stop you. There's precedent for it, but that's not like raw in V5. So
if there's a reason for an NPC to jump up, go for it.
Oh, if you want to make a monster out of an NPC, yeah, fucking
go for it. If it's a player, you might want to at least make it a roll, unless you're really going to crack down on all this free XP they're getting.
Well, yeah, they're gonna be able to get the XP roll regardless because they're gonna have to do a series of those rolls over the course of doing the Diablerie. I'll get into more details about that. Committing a Diablerie is also a reward for doing a blood hunt. So for those who cross the Camarilla enough to become persona non grata, you get put on this thing called the Red List, which is a big list of no, you fucked up. You are, in John Wick, when John Wick fucks up and then everybody in the assassin agency is coming to kill him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's literally that.
Yeah.
Except the Camarilla doesn't exclusively count this as a Camarilla thing, so if Anarchs and Sabat also hear that you're on the red list, they're just like, oh, Daddy isn't gonna back them? Sick.
Now, in this kind of situation, say, I don't know, Gary is on the red list, and he is hanging out in Cam City. Mm-hmm. Are Cam people going to be pissed if Anarchs or Sabat come into the city to go after Gary?
Technically, no. More likely, they just won't give Gary's shelter.
Mm,
If not, there might be people in the Camarilla that are just like, ah, shit, freeze lunch.
gotcha.
Or, there's some that will use killing folks on the red list as like a hierarchical like stand thing, because there's the Alisters that the Justicar for the Ventrue is an Alistair, and their whole thing is hunting people on the red list for sport.
Right.
They don't have to commit Diablerie, but if you're on that list, you are open for being Diablerized, which is weird, because then if you do that, technically you end up in a weird catch-22 where you're like, I followed the rules and I did the thing, but I also committed the sin, so if people wanted to turn around and nail me for that, I guess that could still happen.
I would imagine as long as the prince who you did it under
Okay,
was okay, you'd be fine. But like,
Yeah.
say you did that in Chicago, but then you went to like New Orleans, they could just be like, "Well, fuck you on the spot."
Yeah.
Yeah, you're showing the signs, and we can't vet you, so fuck off.
That, and I could also see if you were a Sabbat or an Anarch hunting someone on the red list as a like, I need to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
I did your job for you. Now let's talk kind of situation where it's
for
like,
sure.
all right, if you catch him, we'll have a meeting. If you don't, you're dead by the sunrise.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of situation
Yeah.
where it's like, all right, help us or die.
Yeah, you can
I
have
dig that.
tons and tons and tons of stories and plot hooks and lore and based on just that faction of it alone. But those are the most prominent quote unquote benefits for doing this.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one of the only ways, because vampires are static, to really raise your power levels or your generation status.
Right.
Or if you're a thin blood, that is one of the only ways to elevate
Not.
yourself. Yeah.
Now, when you are getting those 5 points of experience per success to spend on raising your blood potency or powers that the victim knows,
Yeah.
are you buying them at in-clan prices, or are you buying them at out-of-clan prices? If you are eating them...
I quoted this straight out of the book, and that's all they said.
Okay.
So I think that would just kind of... There is the raw expenditure where it's like, well, if it's in clan, it's going to be cheaper for you.
Yeah.
So it might be a quick way for you to just suddenly, like, boost disciplines. And it's also a very evil way to learn out of clan disciplines. So that might be a... This is what the raw says. If your storyteller wants to be very insidious and just make doing this act more, like, tempting, like devil's advocate-y, you could just be like, no, they're all just 5 flat.
Right.
Because your soul's in, like, a weird balance state. You could technically justify it, like, fluff-wise, but that's not what the raw says.
Right.
Yeah. And if you want to be an ST, you could even just be weird about it and be like, all right, you did it. This is what you get.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just don't even make them a roll for it. Essentially, just like, all right, you go up a level and somehow you can do this. Or within a couple nights, like, you start noticing when you're in a really shady spot, you can't see yourself or whatever.
Right.
Like, you just slowly, like, let them find out they have a new discipline. That could be pretty fun.
That could be an interesting story beat on, like, dealing with the ramifications of it, because there's further things that go along with this. So,
Hello.
you've decided you want to commit Diablerie because, you're like, I
Don't have a conscience?
don't have a conscience, and I want to have the horny juice that makes me jacked. How do I do a Diablerie? So, I am following the Diablerie section from the core book, pages 234 and 235. I understand previous editions have other ways you handle it. We're not fucking dealing with that.
Yeah.
I've just noted other things from previous editions for fluff reasons, because I think they're interesting for building a story. But but god damn, do some of the fucking mechanics get really, really complicated in ways that you're just like, why are we like this? But moving on. So, your first step when you're doing the no, bad, terrible crime is first, the victim must be immobilized. They can either be restrained, staked, or held down by several helpers.
Ew.
Yeah,
That last one I think is worst.
it gets grosser.
Of course.
Step 2. The victim must be drained. This will take an entire scene due to the viscousness of the vitae. Note, each bite from a vampire's fangs causes 2 aggravated damage.
Oh,
That is something in the feeding on vampire section of the core book. People forget about that a lot.
I forget they actually literally have thicker blood.
Mm-hmm.
That also would be something to remind from our last episode about blood, is every time you feed off someone, you're doing 2 ag pretty much
Every time.
every time, unless you're like setting up medical tools and extracting like just the right amount of blood every time.
Mm-hmm. Or you're doing the
Real slow sip.
real slow slip and there's ways you can mitigate the damage, but you're harming people every time. So, morality. And then, the next step. Next step on the draining thing. While any helpers may take part in draining the victim, only one vampire... Oh my god, let me start that over again. Hunter, I am so sorry. While any helpers may take part in draining the victim, only one vampire may claim the victim's power/soul.
And that's got to be like the last bite there.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate in the newest edition they kind of leave it up to interpretation if the soul is a tangible thing or not, or if it's just a metaphorical description of what like the spark of life or consciousness is. That's a thing. That's a theme you can describe at your own table.
Yeah.
Y'all figure it out.
Yeah.
Though I will note, in previous editions, there's spelled out thaumaturgical rituals involving Diablerie, particularly the Ritual of the Bitter Rose, which would allow multiple participants to partake not only in the rebirth, but the power gained from a single Diablerie.
So would they, like, split it between all the participants, essentially?
Yep. And with the Blood Sigils book allowing people to homebrew quote-unquote, rituals, if you're wanting to expand thaumaturgical rituals, there's a fuckload in the old books that pretty much port straight over into V5 pretty easily. So if you want to have some really fucking evil Tremere,
Great.
yeah, you can have, like,
I mean, that's kind of just the standard.
a soul-eating gangbang.
Is that not what they do anyway? Like,
I mean, yeah, it's just when I was reading through it, I was just like, this is gross.
Yeah.
This is awful.
Yeah.
You could also probably, with those homebrew stuff in that book, make a Thin Blood alchemy version of that.
Well, you technically can't you can counterfeit sorceries, you can't counterfeit rituals, but if there's an effect that a ritual does, you might be able to talk through it with the ST.
Okay.
That's another episode, but I wanted to note this because there is already rules stated out for doing a Diablerie as, like, a party platter.
I was almost thinking of also a way that, like, you could have, like, a Thin Blood or multiple Thin Bloods do it and still remain Thin Blood, but still get something out of it.
That might be a talk to the ST. You all are going to lose a fuckload of humanity, but, you know.
Yeah, you still get to walk in the sun.
That's the Thin Blood episode. Anyways, so then the act happens. The Diablerist needs to win a number of tests equal to the victim's blood potency. And the tests that are rolled is strength plus resolve at a difficulty of 3. So if their blood potency is 3, you roll strength and resolve 3 times, and you need to beat a difficulty of 3. If any one of these contests fails, the victim's quote-unquote animating spark dies unconsumed. So you have to succeed all of the rolls.
Interesting.
Right. And then the final step, death.
They did.
The death. Regardless of the outcome of the Diablerie, the body withers and decays quickly.
Even if it's a new vampire.
Yeah, because you've done a fucked up, terrible thing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it's interesting because usually it decays quickly to whatever it would be normally.
Yeah. So if they
like
were turned recently.
Yeah, like a week dead. You forgot to turn off your alarm.
I have 2.
Oh, buddy. But yeah, you're right.
Okay,
Yeah. So
cool.
yeah, if a kindred was like 200 years old, yeah, they'd wither to like dust in a pile of hair.
Right.
And then if they're only embraced like within a year, it'd be like kind of a wet corpse, depending on the environment. But yeah, if you try to commit a Diablerie, regardless if you succeed or fail, the body just
goops. Does it goop or dust?
You know what? Just
You kinda do
have
what you
fun.
want.
Whatever your poetic little heart desires.
Depends on the clan.
It goops and then
Depends
dust.
on the clan!
I like that.
No!
I like
All right.
that.
Nosferatu's goop.
Probably so.
I feel like Ventru would turn to ash. Toreador just kind of blow away in the wind.
Just a sad wind. Very dramatic wind.
In an enclosed room with no AC.
Yeah. So, what is the fallout for committing the Diablerie? So, the victim of a Diablerie experiences literally one of the worst forms of final death that exist in the canon. Who wants to read this quote?
Oh, we circled back around. I'll go ahead.
Ah, yeah, go for it.
I think the spray's still working. I'll need more. I'm going to take that again. At the moment the victim's hunger rating is reduced to 0, he becomes paralyzed. It is as if he slips into torpor, except that he is completely and horribly conscious through the inspiration. As the victim's life force begins to leave his body, he is possessed by terror, a panic that no reason can hold at bay. That's also from Awakening, page 10.
Yeah, it's super gross because, yeah, the whole time the person is being pinned down and then is basically knocked into physical unconsciousness, or however you want to parse that. Their consciousness is awake and fighting actively for survival and is aware of what is happening the entire time.
So it's kind of like sleep paralysis, night terror.
Sleep paralysis, night terror.
It's like someone took a lot of hallucinogenics. They're experiencing ego death, but like their entire existence is ego.
Yeah, like that. There's cases of when people are being assaulted or going through very traumatic situations, they'll kind of hit the freeze. or yeah, you're just where like your brain is rushing at like 20 bajillion whatevers, but you're just kind of doing physically whatever you need to do to survive, to just like psychologically maintain yourself. This is literally the I have no mouth, but I must scream.
Rough.
Yeah, it's
nasty.
It's bad. I'm going to very explicitly say, hi, everybody. Check-ins can and should be done, as the weight of this action is extraordinarily intense and very much mirroring torture and rape. I'm just flat out saying it. I'm like, I can't think of a better euphemism, because there's so much with the way vampires feed that's intrinsically tied to like sexual imagery and metaphor.
Yeah.
That's the end road of what this is. So, given the weight of that, if you need further advice on handling these things, there is the sexual violence in games section of the Advice for Considerate Play in the core book on page 422. And there's also the Torture and No Excuses section in Operational Approaches for the Second Inquisition book, pages 102 and 103, for further advice.
Nice.
So, and in light of the romance book drama, I'm going to be posting about that on our TikTok later. I had to take some time to read everything and think about it. Because I think we've kind of have a policy on the show of like, no, we're going to take in media, think about it, and form our own thoughts instead of just shooting off from the hip.
I like cowboys.
I do like cowboys,
They're cool.
Yeah, when you're dealing with heavier things and things that have a lot of implications to real life and things that could affect your friends at the table that may have had to go through some traumas and they maybe haven't like given all the details or various other things. Yeah, this is where like lines and veils, check-ins, all of those safety tools are important, because as much as the community jokes about like the forbidden sip, I'm like, it's really a dark,
there's a reason that it's forbidden.
Yeah, because it is a deliberate act of destruction. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You can't really parse around that. Committing Diablerie is something that requires conscious active choice, and the players cannot be coerced or frenzy into committing a Diablerie. If you're doing this is an act of evil and destruction that you are actively making as a choice as a player character.
I imagine the idea there too is also like, at least as far as like the frenzy side is taken, is it is like a ritual that has specific steps that need to be taken. And if you're in a frenzied state of mind where you can't fully process what you're doing, you're not going to be able to succeed at that. Like I would say even if your character frenzies and they try and do it, it's like an instant fail on those dice rolls. Their brain's not in the right space. They're not going to take the right steps. You might eat a guy to death.
Yeah.
But you're not going to actually consume them.
Yeah, that's basically, because I revisited the frenzy section for V5, and that basically parallels what you're saying. To quote, a vampire in frenzy loses all capacity for rational thought, driven solely by rage, starvation, or panic. If not riding the wave, a vampire in frenzy becomes the property of the storyteller for the duration. So, storytellers, if you have a player that is frenzying, do not take your player's agency away and force them to make a Diablerie.
They can't.
That's one, like, they don't have the mental, like, faculties to make that conscious destructive choice, because there's so many steps involved in doing this level of destruction. And two, taking away player agency is super fucked up. Don't do it.
Like, at worst, like, shit, you can even have them, like, kill a important human or another important character to them, or
yeah, you can have them, like, it's one thing to
destroy their haven, or
you can have talks about like consent and how far destruction and death is willing to go for your game and how much you want to have the stakes, or like how high that is. It's one thing for your character to be in frenzy and kill an NPC. Doing the Diablerie specifically is such a level of just like existential annihilation, is the only way I can explain it, that it's just like, it is beyond just doing a murder. Like, you're just utterly obliterating somebody just from reality.
Their corpse doesn't even sit around.
Yeah.
It turns to dust.
So, yeah, and having your storyteller take your player agency away from doing such a heinous thing and forcing that on you is extraordinarily fucked up.
The closest I could see to making that work is if you had a player who'd already consciously decided that they were going to do it, and in their frenzy you're like, all right, you did it, but you'd lose out on the great experience of it.
Yeah, well, actually, there is steps for that kind of technically.
Interesting, okay.
So, to continue the quote, a vampire can also choose to ride the wave, intentionally succumbing to the frenzy without making a test. This act follows the usual frenzy rules, though the storyteller should let the player play out the frenzy themselves, such as choosing who they feed upon first rather than having the storyteller take complete control of the character. So, in this instance, the player is still making the conscious choice to commit the act of aggression and to go through all the steps. So since this is a player making a conscious and active choice, because there's a lot of steps involved and you can stop and back out at any point, I would say if that player is insisting on continuing through this whole process, do check in to be like, are you sure you want to keep going with this? And if they go yes, be like, okay, cool, you were also going to have all of the consequences of this because this was a choice you made.
And I mean, going with some of the quotes we had earlier, there are reasons, there are flaws, there are clan banes that may push a character who's frenzying to want to do that, like with the our Banu friend earlier.
Yeah, and this is also where the story gets into like themes of addiction.
Yeah, but the idea there is that the player is still making that choice because we haven't gotten to it fully yet, but the downsides of doing this are something you shouldn't just thrust on a character.
No. We are going to get into some of that. So to reemphasize, this is a death that is beyond death, essentially. While many other cultures will find just the consumption of blood itself to be highly taboo, this goes far beyond that. Whether your table wishes to acknowledge the soul as an actual substantive thing or a metaphorical concept, the act of Diablerie consumes and destroys whatever the spark is. So, yeah, this is just Control-Alt-deleting just a soul. Because, in the canon with World of Darkness, there is, Beyond the Veil. So there's wraiths and other... Life continues beyond the weak
Physical.
Flesh.
Right.
And you are stopping that. And I'm just like, oh, that's... Ugh.
That's rough.
You can get into some Cthulian thoughts on that if you want to, like, make it a little less heavy. But you're also just, like, you're fundamentally destroying another person in ways that you cannot take back. It's
less truly comprehend.
Yeah. You're probably not going to. Though I did go down another rabbit hole, and I apologize, everyone.
Here we go.
So, there's this concept of the heart's blood, is also referred to as blood essence, and this thick black vitae is a concentration of the vampire's power in self. Whether this is their consciousness or soul is up for debate. So instead of having all of the vitae that's like thick and viscous with like portions of the thing, you can just have like a cup full of it that's like super thick and concentrated and it has everything in it. So that's what heart's blood is.
Interesting.
This blood sorcery is a high-level practice of quietus. It's at the 5-dot level from the Banu Hakim. And this does trace back to the Dark Ages storyline where in there they mention this practice goes back into like ancient times, even going back to like Hakim himself.
Damn.
Yeah. For centuries, this practice was often done by the warrior caste upon felled enemies as a way to give their elders or to take this power back to Alamut to be used as a resource.
Right.
Those who followed also the moral path of blood would use this heart's blood as a substance in their religious rituals. So if you want to get sabati with things with an NPC, this is pretty metal.
Yeah.
It's super fucked up. It's very metal though.
Also, you can totally just casually have like, a thing of heart's blood on like labeled heart's blood in a cabinet in an elder's office. I don't know. I like that idea.
Yeah, just have that just to like denote like quietly just like how fucked up this person is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The practice of doing this sorcery is essentially committing Diablerie, with the caster testing their willpower against the victim, who is aware and can fight back, because you're basically fighting their consciousness to squeeze them into the juice. Those who consume this essence later on, while it is still fresh, go through the process of completing the Diablerie with all of the pros and cons.
Okay.
Wow.
So it's basically like putting a pause in the middle of the Diablerie and taking the guy somewhere else.
So it's basically a way to Diablerize through someone else.
Interesting.
Or for someone else, I guess
Yeah,
is a better way to put it.
Yeah, so if it is possible for a warrior that knew this spell to kill somebody, squish their power and souls into a juice carton, take it somewhere else or give it to somebody else, and then they could finish the process.
Because at that point, they would just drink it, right?
Yeah, or they could just slam it themselves. Yeah, because either you have to do it right in the moment before, the spark flitters away, and this is one way of putting a pause on that for a period of time, which I feel like is more horrifying because it implies that the person's consciousness is in the juice box and is aware of what is happening. Which is more, I have no mouth, but I'm a scream.
I'm a juice box. I'm a juice box.
Yeah, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. Imagine being I'm gonna die in a tiny container you cannot escape from for nights, weeks, months, years, potentially.
Yeah, we don't have a stopper on that. If you want to use our rules from the blood episode about how long that would last, but it is a specifically magical thing, so you could definitely get away with extending that time period.
Yeah.
I almost like the idea of it just staying.
Yeah, there's basically the heart's blood can be dried out and the power wanes over time according to the old text. This is also a blood sorcery because of the Blood Sigils book. If you want to port this Quietus rituals and spells and then pop them into your V5 game, there's now a track for you to do that. So that's why I'm mentioning it now.
Right.
Because you can use it. You don't have to, though.
Probably shouldn't.
Probably shouldn't, unless you want to have like a really fucked up NPC. Which I'm always for bad guys being actually bad guys.
Yay.
It makes the stakes worth it instead of everybody's kind of vaguely a piece of shit. No, you need a couple of guys where you're just like, holy fuck.
Wow.
Oh, I thought I was hot shit. No. Oh, I just have a trench coat and bad ideas. Along with other uses of this heart's blood, there are notes of potential memories being transferred along while you're doing a Diablerie. So certain Banu sorcerers and viziers can use the heart's blood to observe and learn things from the years lived of the victim.
Huh.
So as far as I can tell, when they do this from the text, they aren't actually committing Diablerie, but it's also like on the same level of fucked up where you're just like dissecting somebody's consciousness to like learn things from them.
Yeah, that's pretty fucked.
Yeah, it's not a good time. Oh gosh. Yeah, then there's also some sorcerers within the Banu Hakim who could condense their vitae to transfer power through false Diablerie to circumvent the curse that was put on them by the Tremere through a ritual called Renewal of the Soul.
What?
Yeah! So, because the Tremere cursed the Banu Hakim so they couldn't commit Diablerie.
Yeah.
And some Banu Hakim, because they follow the path of blood, it's like a very significant important moral, ritualistic thing for them to do, or things to gain power. So they could use Heart's Blood, basically to, through a ritual to fake a Diablerie.
Okay.
Yeah, reading through it was a little squirrely. That is definitely talk to your ST if you want to, like, have this in your game for whatever reason. But it's one of those, like, if you want to have somebody in the game that's like, well, I'm not technically committing Diablerie, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, that's almost worse than you just straight up doing it. Like, you're trying to, like, you realize it's bad and you're trying to get away with it. Like, that's fucking crazy.
You also hinted at it earlier, and I'm sure it's coming up, but there are a lot of downsides.
Oh,
and I'm
yes.
sure to the outside eyes, it looks exactly the same. Both these methods.
Yep. It's essentially not really that different. But they'll be like, well, if I do this ritual, I don't have the thing where the Tremere curse causes me to take burning aggravated damage as I burn from the inside out.
So this is specifically good for Old World.
Yes.
Banu.
Yeah. Now, could there be applications for this for people trying to avoid getting the, other downsides? Possibly, but that's also a read through the text, talk to your ST. It also depends on the kind of stories you want to tell, blah, 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 blah.
I feel like that's more of a plotline convenience that the ST chooses than a player.
Yeah.
Because with a player it does, even if, unless it's very closely tied to your story, it does kind of feel like them trying to get out of something.
Yeah, as a storyteller, I would not let it work in the way that they're intending. Where it's like, okay, well, maybe the black lines show up less, but there's other issues. I'm trying to emphasize that this is bad and that there should be consequences and players shouldn't just get away with this kind of shit. But in the canon, there are obviously going to be characters that are going to try and get away with that shit. So I'm trying to acknowledge what I have been able to find and what I'm aware of. So storytellers and players can decide how they want to handle their stories, because I can't stop you from telling a pizza cutter story where it's all edge and no point. I can't stop you, but I'd rather you didn't, because those are boring and they suck.
I do like pizza, though.
I like pizza, but you can cut a pizza with just a fucking knife. Or scissors, or a katana, or a kukri. Or you could just fold that bitch in half and just eat it.
Hard, unless that'd be kind of fun though. Just hack the pizza.
I needed a moment of levity, guys. Jesus Christ.
I like it.
But yeah,
I'm bringing a machete next time we have pizza.
Hell yeah.
I want to do that thing where you do with paper where you fold it and then you unfold it and you fold it the other way. and then you really press down on the edge so that it just tears really easy.
Get you one of those like folding
With a
bones so you
pizza?
have the really
With a
crisp
pizza.
edge. Oh god. But yeah, for those who don't want to like deal with any of that, or if you don't really have the Banu Hakim in your plot, good news for V5.
Woo!
The concept of memories and other information from a vampire being transferred from one to the other is bolstered by the thin blood alchemical drug known as ash. That will be its own fucking episode.
That showed up in our game, but we
Yeah.
kind of stopped.
You guys kind of stopped fucking with that. It didn't stop fucking with you, though.
We had bigger fish to fry.
That's fine.
It's kind of true.
There's also evidentiary weight to memories and thoughts and the consciousness being transferred also through what happens when Diablerie fails, which we will discuss later on.
Or if you listen to our cults episode, you might remember some of that.
Some of that.
Whoops.
So, committing Diablerie is the worst crime among vampires. It directly breaks the sixth tradition, which is, if one of you want to read...
Thou art forbidden to destroy another of thy kind. The right of destruction belongeth only to thine elder, only to the eldest among thee shall call the blood hunt. Core book 52 page.
Why'd you spray him at the end?
I just wanted to help him out.
God.
Just need a little throat spray.
Do you need a moment? Oh my god.
It's so gross. It didn't even get in my throat. It's just on my tongue.
I like it.
Oh my god. Anywho, those who do not follow the rules of the tower will look down upon Diablerists. Anarchs tend to, at least follow the masquerade, and then the Diablerie one's kind of like a close second on the like, I don't know if we can trust this guy, because he ate Jimmy, and Jimmy was cool, and Cheryl's gone. I don't know what happened to Tobias. Fuck, like that's just logistics problems.
Yeah. You start seeing a pattern of like his haven and the havens near his haven are becoming abandoned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not good. And even elders within the Sabbat know to keep an eye on their mad fledglings and neonates, because, the Sabbat's just like, well, if people get too big and too powerful, you cut them down to the fucking knee, because we're here to fight God.
Mm-hmm.
Not become one.
Yeah, so a lot of Diablerie within the ranks of the Sabbat, which is a big chunk of the reason why they're recommended to be antagonists and non-player characters.
It's hard to be a coterie when you're incentivized to eat each other. Oh, that could be a fun story.
Yeah,
You
if
just
that,
have to have the right players.
yeah, if you wanna go, I'm not telling people not to do that, but for the baby bats who are coming into World of Darkness from other systems, that might be a lot to start out with, and maybe I don't recommend it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not gonna tell you no. I might not just join your table, and that's fine. There's loads of games for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Continuing on, those who are particularly heinous may be hunted down by Archons and Alisters. For those who remember, Archons are just a step down of the Justicars, who are the heads of the clans for the Camarilla, and they're like Texas Rangers,
Right.
that travel around and like do specific tasks. Like the back to John Wick, that bitch with the one earring and the shaved head.
Mm-hmm.
I think Archon adjacent.
Got it.
Actually, John Wick's really good for explaining things in the Camarilla the more I've said it. Like, I'm not wrong. It's a good way to
Vampire
explain
can
shit.
be an action game.
Hell yeah!
So, like, Archons are kind of like
Deputies.
international sheriffs almost.
Yeah, it's like Interpol.
Yeah, they're like state police versus like Indianapolis police.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, or like feds.
Yeah, and then the
Vampire feds.
Yeah, and then the Alisters
Ew.
are kind of like mercenaries. There's red Alisters, which are Alisters that have killed people that are in like the top 5, so they got like extra acclaim.
Ooh.
They got extra status because they killed a big boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll make your life difficult if you do a Diablerie, because then people are gonna go, let's get him. We can kill that
Let's
guy.
go ahead and grab that guy real quick.
It does say that if it's particularly heinous, so I assume you'd either have to eat someone like that really ups your power, was really well known, or you did it like very flagrantly.
Yeah, or frequently.
Frequently, yeah.
Or you did it in like a debauched way that like caused a lot of consternation.
Mm-hmm.
Because, because the way you're supposed to be parsing out your vampire population to your human population, there should not be that many vampires, even in metropolitan cities. So, if there's a community of like 100, 200 of you, somebody's going to notice when somebody goes missing.
Mm-hmm.
And people are going to ask questions. And vampires are nosy. And we love getting dirt on each other.
It's true.
Mm-hmm. So if you have a character that commits Diablerie, the odds of them actually keeping that quiet for long, especially if they're going to remain in the city that they did it in, is not great.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people whose jobs and hobbies are hunting your ass down.
Right.
So, it's like, there's people that do it literally for sport. So, yeah, just, keep that in consideration. Also in notes, Diablerists that are caught by these kinds of kindred may find themselves tortured as part of their punishment before execution.
Great.
Because the Justicars and the Archons are like, well, we gotta make an example of him, and we rule through terror and fear.
You might even be tortured in Elysium. You might be the main event.
Yep, party favor.
I imagine that they might put on a show to, a member of this clan was eaten. So, this clan, you all may take a bite, or whatever.
Yeah. Or,
we're just going to toss him into Chinatown.
Yeah. It's like, well, we have this basket, iron basket full of hot coals, and we have a bunch of pokers. Every member of this clan is reporting to the city on this night, and we're going to each take turns. And that's how we're starting Elysium tonight.
Woo!
It will continue from there.
It's going to be a party.
Yeah, so there might be consequences outside of like, well, I guess you can just kill my character. And I'm like, oh, no. There'll be levels of pain and humiliation because we have to make everybody understand that this is a big no-no because we are civilized because we have rules.
Be on the level of the gold drinking.
The gold drinking? Oh, God. I'm sorry, just the Vannevar Thomas is like, what if we fill him with gold? And I'm just like, what the shit, fuck? That's horrifying anytime that happens. I'm just like, fuck.
Turning a vampire in one of those ant colony artworks.
Mm-hmm. Oh, God.
And then you can display it in Elysium so everyone knows what happened to the last guy that did Diablerie.
Or if you want to be a real bastard fuck. One of my personal favorites is, especially because a lot of cities happen near water, particularly deep water, you fill them with wet setting cement, like in their lungs and abdominal cavities and just whatever orifice you can find or make, and then just chuck them into the deep end. Because you see, we follow the rules of destruction here, the right of destruction, so we're not going to destroy you.
It's going to toss you in the bottom of there.
And nobody's going to bother finding you. And if anybody does, that's not my problem. You're out of my jurisdiction.
They'll forget about this.
Yeah.
Because technically concrete does break down over time, but that's
But the odds are they'll be in torpor by then.
Yeah.
And, Lasombra might find them as their underwater snack between cracking submarines open.
Right.
Yeah.
Or a new ally if you.
If
your players get to sinking people often.
Yeah, so there's ramifications. There's also the Amarathans, which is actually really interesting. So remember back at the beginning of the episode with Amaratha, who was Diablerized and supposedly the first written recorded first vampire Diablerized.
Get it?
Yeah. So her being a Toreador, shockingly, had a bunch of lovers, and they were all so upsetty spaghetti about this. They banded together to form a revenge squad.
Hell yeah.
This was supposedly a collection of Bruja, Nosferatu, and other Banu Hakim.
Hell yeah.
And they're just like, nah, they got our girl. Fuck that. Fuck that shit. Which is actually kind of cool. So this group has continued the practice of hunting down Diablerists to this very evening. And they will execute these kindred without trial or seeking permission from local authorities. They will do this across the world, throughout time. This is what they do. You have a squad of vampire Jason Todds, or the Crow, or however the fuck.
That's wild.
That are hunting down Diablerist as a token of memory for, like, a lost loved one. Which is the gothest fucking shit.
Yeah.
It just fucking, it's so good. The faithful of this cult believe that they can either set free or merge with Amaratha herself if they manage to consume her murderer. The OG murderer supposedly has been slain, but for your story, if you want to just change that, that's up to you. Mm-hmm. But they will hunt down the descendants of the original assailant.
I wonder if when they say, like, end the murderer, they mean their, like, entire line.
They mean the entire line.
So not only do they hunt down Diablerists and the people who Diablerize their dead lover, they also then
hunt down
Diablerize them.
Sometimes they do. Upon finding a cult,
are hypocritical creatures.
Yeah. Though they have this weird code. Like, this cult in particular has this really interesting code. So, upon finding a culprit, they can offer to pass along a final message before execution. They'll carry out a non-blasphemous final wish. So, if somebody's like, I want you to do a Diablerie, they're just like, fuck. Well, I guess I gotta do that and then seppuku myself. Or, there has been the rare chance that they've even granted mercy and saw redemption in another soul.
Huh.
Yeah, it's fucking metal. It's really cool. Yeah, so could you just imagine just a part of a plot where some vampire's just doing some weird batshit thing from out of town, and you're like, who the fuck's this guy? And he's like, oh yeah, well, I executed this fucking Diablerist in Paris, and he had this, like, final wish, and I am fulfilling that. And they're like, oh, well, that completely fucks the politics of our city. And he's like, I don't care.
I need to finish this up and leave. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Most vampires will tolerate the operations of this cult since most members only show up if they're on a case and then just leave afterwards. So they just show up and they go, all right, I got the guy. Bye. It's like the lone stranger in Fallout New Vegas. They just show up, do the murder, leave.
I feel like it's also one of those cults where, like, usually the Camarilla is like, we don't want anyone else operating around here. But, like, the second it's Diablerist, they're like, thanks for taking care of our problem.
Oh, that's less work for me. Sick.
Mm-hmm.
Which, funny you mentioned that. The thoughts on this cult have changed over the course of recent nights.
Ooh, I wonder why.
Because most of the cult has focused on the Sabbat, because, you know, they just fucking love doing Diablerie all the time, and there's a lot less Sabbat. Mm-hmm. So now these cultists are like, well, I have all this free time. Hey, Camarilla, I noticed some of you guys are doing Diablerie, and the Camarilla's like,
that's not us.
That's not us. We didn't do that.
I've never eaten one of those before.
Me?
Ever.
Crime?
There's
Never.
I'm vegan.
There's absolutely no lore reason whatsoever that an older member of the Camarilla would want to commit Diablerie.
Would have ever committed Diablerie to,
way.
like, rise to the ranks of the politics of the town. Never.
Or to avoid going on a trip.
Right? Never.
Not
Literally
once.
not possible.
Never. There's no reason that a very powerful Toreador Methuselah could potentially be hunted down by these Amartheran cultists, which would be really funny because that's like the progenitor of the girl that they are doing the revenge quest for. That would never happen.
That would be hilarious.
I was also thinking them going head to head with, I can't remember what they're called from our Nosferatu episode. But
Nictuku?
Yeah, Nosferatu are essentially just eating all the other Nosferatu.
Yeah, the Amarthans versus the Nictuku would be, oh my god, that'd be so scary.
What would you do if you were just you're hanging out in your little sewer dweller, and there's been some rumors of a Nictuku in, like, you know, the necropolis that all you and your little cousins are hanging out in, and then, like, you know, a week, a month or so go on with this rumor spreading, and then you see these people come in who are definitely not from the city, definitely not Nosferatu, and they just, like, start going deeper and deeper and deeper into the necropolis. How would you feel
as a Nosferatu?
As a Nosferatu in that scenario? You're just hanging out.
Stay a little closer to the surface for a while.
That has the energy of, like, when you're watching a spaghetti western and the white hat, like, starts to walk down the main street. I'd just be like, we are leaving.
We gotta leave.
Everything's gonna be on fire. Whatever money you made at the brothel, put it in your bustier. We are going.
I'll say it did specifically say that it was Bruja, Nosferatu, and Bana Hukim who make up the majority
of this.
Majority,
okay. Though there could be others that just, like, got wrapped up into this, or they have their own revenge quest, and then this cult's like, hey, you're really good at this, kid. You want to go pro? And he's like, fuck yeah.
We pay. Travel.
Yeah.
That would be a cool storyline.
That would be
if, like, your sire got Diablerized, and you're on a revenge quest, and then these guys show up, and you're like, oh, you want to do it?
Speaking of, if you want to do it, there's a lore sheet for this cult in Children of the Blood on page 104.
Oh, fuck yeah. I got an idea for a character now.
Yeah, you can find and judge Diablerist, gain respect for your dedication, and even avoid losing humanity for committing Diablerie yourself. Because, you know, if you're eating of the bloodline that slew the long-lost lover and you're trying to, like, free her soul by, like, reclaiming it, that's fine.
That's fine.
Uh-huh.
No
problems.
There's a whole lore sheet that you can spend points on to make sure there's no problems.
Yeah.
I mean...
zero problems.
It'll help.
You're still going to have these...
other problems.
These personal tolls.
Yes.
That come from, you know, sipping... a soul away.
Yeah, so we've talked about, like, the social problems for doing Diablerie, which is, you know, everybody's like, this is bad, like, morals and stuff.
Don't do it. You're a dick if you do it.
For those of you who are playing characters like, well, I'm a monster, I don't care about being a dick, I'm fine with taking the price. Here's the personal price. Here is the troll toll for getting into that boy's hole.
Boop, boop, boop.
First is the black veins in your aura.
Yeah.
So, black veins become visible in the Diablerist aura. They persist for a year, or if the Diablerist generation was lower than their praise, They persist for a number of years equal to the original difference in generation.
For some reason, I thought it lasted longer.
It used to, but it got
Okay.
truncated in V5, so it's
I'm
a
kind
little
of
easier to
sad
keep
about
track.
that, to be honest. I liked the idea of them just being there for a long-ass fucking time.
Yeah, well, here's the slight note on that is a lot of characters for V5 have been crunched down into the lower gen, or into the higher gens, so bigger golf numbers. So the odds of you finding a character that is that much of a step different from you is not great.
Right.
Unless you're doing that kind of adventure. And then there are rules for like, well, I guess you're going to be like this for years. Good luck.
There was also I feel like I remember seeing, I don't know if it was Storyteller's Vault, don't remember even what book it might have been in, a flaw you can take that makes the veins like permanent.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that might be. I haven't seen it in the current canon, but I would not be opposed to having that in my game. But that would be we're going to talk it out and make sure everybody's cool with that because, you know, the tones are heavy and maybe somebody doesn't want to deal with that.
Right.
I would even say if you're taking flaws when making your character and you're willing to put like, let's say 3 dots into the notoriety flaw and say, I got some veins in my aura. Like, I think that would be a good reason to be notorable.
Oh, yeah. The notorious, where everyone's like, you're a Diablerist. And that's like notorious. And then you also have disliked or the status flaw. Oh, my God. Yeah, if you want to start on the game on hard mode, yeah, go for it. These veins, by the way, can be seen through the use of the Auspex power, Scry the Soul, which is a 3rd level Auspex power. So baby bats aren't going to have it, but it's also not super out of the reach for just people to have that just around and on.
Guarantee if you walk into Elysium, at least a couple people are looking at you like that.
Mm-hmm.
Almost assuredly.
Absolutely.
Probably the guy watching the door to start with.
I haven't built a Banu Hakim that is literally just a walking truth detector. You can get some scary shit with that. Also, a critical success on the blood sorcery, A Taste for Blood, lets the caster know if the vampire has ever committed Diablerie. So even if the veins have vanished, that state is still marked within your vitae. So those who know blood sorcery, and this is a level 1 blood sorcery. This is like the baby bat. Everybody learns it.
Oh,
so
interesting.
Good luck.
Now, is that one of the blood sorceries where you have to have their blood?
Yes, but it can just be like a very small smattering, swipe.
You could be like, see someone next to you get cut and just off the floor be like, just dab that up and lick.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Very minimal.
Cool.
Not enough to be bonded.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Those within the Banu Hakim comment on them potentially being pinned as Diablerist without cause. I'm just going to read this quote because it's a long boy and I apologize.
Hey, wait. Spray?
No spray.
Okay.
Thank you, Hunter.
That was one for me.
That was a little treat for you. The eldest judges can recall nights when a newly embraced warrior soul was almost entirely black, with only the faintest traces of his heartstrings visible. His skin darkened to match within just a matter of years.
Damn.
Some say that Hakim himself was responsible for visibly marking the judges in this fashion as a means by which all residents of the second city could easily identify one of their number, though this does not explain why members of other castes also darken with age. Clan Book Assamite, page 12. Other clans will claim that this happens because of the Banu Hakim's ritualized Diablerie practices in ancient times still flowing within their veins. This is contested. Also, the skin darkening over time thing kind of squidgy as they commit more sins. That's part of the reason why I used to not let anybody play Assamites at my table, because I was just like, write me a character that doesn't do this like foreign guy with a sword is doing violence and his skin is darkening over time trope, please, because that's super gross and weird. But I think it's interesting that Hakim was like, no, if we're going to be judges and monitor the morals of the city, we need to be clearly marked so the citizens know.
Right. So that's how he decided to do it.
I don't like the way he did it, but I like that he's a little bit more upfront than American cops.
Yeah.
I think for vampires, you could get away with doing a version of it that was, like, in their aura.
An aura or, like, a tattoo. The way it's marked is, like, all of their skin got darker over time. And I'm like, that's some, like, weird Mormon conspiracy theory about natives peoples that I'm just like, that gives me the ick.
I like the idea it's a tattoo. And every like year they have the tattoo expanded.
Or, you know, like the veins in the aura like start to mirror as like markings or tattoos on their skin over time. Like that could be metal as fucking cool, but
Yeah, I always pictured it, and I know it's not. I don't think it's supposed to be. I think the aura is supposed to be floating around the person. But I always like the idea that the veins like mirrored on their actual veins in their body. Like you could almost see the black veins like pulse through their skin.
oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. So there's that one. Your soul is literally a giveaway that you did a crime. So there's that. You also have the loss of humanity. The Diablerist loses 1 point of humanity. That's just according to the core book.
Boom.
Just doing Diablerie at all, you automatically go down 1 step. With the roll earlier about the potential XP gains, there's also another addendum to that. Should the roll fail while you're doing this contest, the Diablerist loses an additional point of humanity for each success by which they fail. I think this is worded a little vaguely for my taste. I would interpret it that as each die of the margin by which they fail, they would lose another humanity, but it's also extraordinarily vague.
That's what I would think.
That's the rolls for the extra XP, not the rolls for committing the Diablerie.
Yeah. So when you're doing the rolls that would allow you to get the extra XP, if you fuck those up,
you're either getting XP or more humanity loss.
Yep.
Which if you're already playing like, it doesn't matter, I have super low humanity, I'll do whatever I want. That could just like jet set you to a white.
Yep.
Brutal.
Yeah. Funny you should mention that. A failed Diablerie. If the loss of humanity spirals and corrodes the humanity to 0, the prey's mind replaces the Diablerist and they become the host of the body and the personality of their target and become an NPC.
Damn.
Yeah. So if you fuck this up, you lose your character. Storyteller, take him now. You make a new one.
I like the idea that they get jettisoned into the now dying corpse.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's going on with the worm monster.
Oh, just fucking Salat and Tremere have just been like slamming in the worm body for like centuries.
But like
the
worm body is its own consciousness because that's Zemitzi. I could totally see them being like, no, I just transferred it into the skin.
Mm-hmm.
Me is the skin. I am the skin.
Mm-hmm.
So they're fighting in the body while the body's like, oh, guys, can we chill out for a second so I can do my thing?
And it's like, I just took a Pilates class and my muscles are sore and I need you guys to shut the fuck up.
Right.
Yeah, that's partially why I like my weird little pet theory that Saulat has got out of the worm body and Tremere's also out of the worm body and there's just the worm body.
Yeah.
And no one really knows what to do with it, but it has its own consciousness.
Yes.
That's my fun little pet theory, but
You're like, please keep it dormant. That's all we're asking for.
That makes the most sense, if only because they've hinted at like all of them doing things. They're like, some people say this one's still alive because this. Well, I've heard this one. It's like, maybe they all just got out. I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, between some notes about a three-eyed witch in Alamut in the Spot book, and then the Blood Sigils book has some updates on what clan or House Goratrix is doing. Oh boy,
Nothing good.
no.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't have to read.
It's the twink.
Yeah.
It's the goth twink. Of course,
the
nothing
worst
good is
one.
happening. The worst lad.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you fuck up Diablerie, your body gets taken over by the other person, and, no more character. That's what you're risking when you do that.
So
that's Diablerie.
Not really.
Not really woo.
Question.
Yo.
This one's, I guess, probably kind of spicy.
Hmm.
Can someone be voluntarily Diablerized?
Yes. It can happen. It's not common.
Right.
This might be more of if you're going into like cults of the blood gods material where there's cults and stuff, there might be willing sacrifices. I could actually see that with like the Shepherds of Earl Shagi.
Yeah.
Because they have a whole thought process of recruiting thin bloods and testing their worth, and if they are worthy of the Sword of Hakim, they are allowed to Diablerize to become a Banu Hakim fully.
Right.
So if a thin blood were to outpace a Banu of a certain level, I could totally see them, if they're in that cult, being like, oh, well, he's better at this than me, fuck it.
Right. Cult of Shalem, too.
Cult of Shalem, oh my god.
Embrace the sweet existence of nothing.
I also could see if you were old and smart, but not necessarily strong, but maybe you had a higher humanity and stuff, and you get on the red list, and some absolute, like, monster freaks after you, you're like, yeah, go for it. Like, being like, maybe I can take the boss.
So there's also some
I love that.
so there's some
Maybe I can
interesting
take
lore
it.
notes
Yeah,
around
yeah.
Mithras.
Oh,
Mithras,
yeah.
where, you know, the very baby Banu guy, spoilers everybody, Diablerized him during the Blitz because he got bombed by the Germans into getting knocked the fuck out. And then this poor guy was just like, oh, what if I just, you know, go for it? But it's also like, did he really go for it? I personally don't like having the canon of forces pushing a character into doing Diablerie against their will. I'm like, no, you have to choose that choice.
Mm-hmm.
So that guy went along with it, but also if Mithras is like, but what if I had a different face? And he just kind of went along with it?
Yeah.
Which is fucking wild of just it's like, I'm voluntarily submitting to this, but also, I'm also going to live in your head with you simultaneously.
That's the other thing that we didn't necessarily get into, but there's a lot of hints that, like we said, the consciousness is still alive in the Heart's Blood.
Mm-hmm.
There's a good chance there's another thing in your head other than just your beast.
Yeah, the older editions have rules for having possession and having memories and other affectations of the other personality interfering with you over time. That isn't so much discussed in the book and the raw in V5, but if you want to go with it, why the fuck not? I think there's enough precedent of consciousness and memories being transferred from one character to another already. So I'm just like, yeah, if you want to, go for it.
Right.
There's nothing stopping you. But if you don't want to fuck with that, because it's like, you know, hi guys, I stare into the void of doom scrolling all the time. Sometimes I just don't want things to be that heavy every fucking session, and I don't want to fucking deal with it. That's also valid. You're just like, look, man, I just wanted to play What We Do in the Shadows this week, my guys. I'm so sorry.
But then Greg was like, but what if I ate him?
Yeah, so...
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
As an expansion of my question,
Yes.
could you presence someone into voluntarily doing it?
No.
Make them fall so in love with you that they're willing to give themselves to you, like cult leader style.
I think you can do that to get them into, like, the submission, like the restraint position.
Okay.
But I would think once the
Ego
blood
death starts
draining,
happening,
the blood draining, and once the mortality starts to kick in, just animal, like, I want to live is going to kick in.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Having listened to the Jonestown's tapes, let me tell you.
For sure, Z's.
I don't recommend that. That is not safe for life material.
It is not.
I do not
Don't do
recommend
it.
that.
You
You
don't need
can,
to.
but, like, you don't need
You
to.
don't need to. It's
Yeah,
fine.
we've done that for you.
And we can say, you don't need to.
Yeah, so I just based on real life experiences, I don't think you can genuinely cult hard enough
Mm-hmm.
to do it really.
That's fair. Good. Probably
So,
good.
Probably good. Yeah. No, I mean, have there been examples of people choosing to do these things because of, you know, I wouldn't say presence would allow for the brainwashing of that, but if somebody full-heartedly believed in the idea on their own,
Mm-hmm.
and then you were presencing along the way, potentially, but that's also getting to some really icky, weird morality
We're doing
stuff.
Diablerie, so like,
Yeah,
it makes
so
kind
that's
of
a-
sense, like,
Yeah, that is a double check the lines of veils, everybody.
absolutely, yeah.
But if you want to explore those themes, like, sure.
I would also
Gross.
go along the lines of, from my interpretation, it doesn't fucking matter. You're still doing something awful, and it's not going to have any mechanical change to
Oh,
what
no.
happens.
No,
It's not changing the
not at
mechanics.
all.
The
It's
story would be slightly different,
Mhm.
but
Right. I feel like that would just, again, to build like an absolute like monster of a baddie. Like,
I think
yeah, this person's been cultivating this cult of other vampires so that they can feed their like blood leechiness, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
to me, the closest you get to voluntarily, quote unquote, or allowed Diablerie is like with the Sabbat, where it is like we've agreed to a code where if you're stronger than me, you
Mhm.
win.
Yeah.
Even though you're fighting the whole time, there is a part of you that's like, if he beats me, he's earned it. In the same
Yeah.
way that if I kick his ass, I've earned it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the closest, cleanest you get, and that's still not that
Yeah,
clean, but
it's
at least that's
not.
like a code of honor that both sides of the conflict have agreed to ahead of time.
Yeah, you might also get like a couple of just very mentally unwell characters that think that through Diablerie they can enmesh their souls together in a love union that's like more deep than a
mhm.
blood marriage,
Right.
which is also like, that's not how that
Let's not-
works.
let's
That
not
is
do
not how
that.
that works. I mean, if your characters want to explore that story, I can't stop you. But that's another avenue. That might be just something that's like a crazy thing some NPCs are doing in another room that I'm not going to make you guys open that door, but if you open that door, it's in The Shining where they're running through the hall and there's the dog guy giving the guy a blowjob. It's like that where you're just like, ugh, and keep going.
Should we stop? No,
do not
let's
stop.
Just keep going.
No, it is a silly place. Yeah. Any other final thoughts, my friends, my dudes?
I think that's good for. I mean,
yeah. I just think I'm happy we did this episode because the danger sip and the forbidden sip is a fun ass meme, but it really does
the meme is pretty dank, but it's also like
it's not a silly thing.
It's not actually a silly thing, and when you're telling story games, symbols have fucking meaning, and the way that you tell the stories around the symbols, I think, really gives away your thoughts on society and how you're framing things. So like, hey, let's maybe not frame just the wanton destruction and overtake of other people's free will and autonomy as like being just a fun, silly thing. Because I'm like, that's gross and weird. Why do you think that's funny?
Yeah.
But that's maybe Sarah getting a little too heavy.
I mean, it is funny, but maybe we should, think about it.
Think about it a bit. Like, if this is too heavy, feel free to cut it, and I apologize. Like, I have a history of dealing with being assaulted by more than one of my partners, and I've cracked jokes about it, but it's been jokes that are, like, me reclaiming, like, my own sense of power about the situations overall. It's another thing if somebody else is making an assault joke more times than not. So it's one of those context matters. And empathy matters, and the way you're handling this stuff does matter. I'm not here to be a killjoy, but, when we're telling stories that are heavy with mature themes, unfortunately, that comes with heavy and mature themes.
What?
Oh, no! God forbid!
Holy damn.
So just don't be a dick to your friend. And, if you want if you want the hose at the table, you have to create a place that the hose can be at.
And the bros.
And the bros. The hose and the bros.
Everyone should be respected.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
The hose, the bros, and the those.
Yeah, I like that. The hose, the bros, and those.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. That's a good one. I'm proud of you. Ally. We ended on a good note. Good. Because I've been researching this for a week, and I've just been like, just the equivalent of just in my brain constantly playing just the All Around Me or Familiar Faces song, and just like getting slower and slower with every loop. I'm just like, ugh.
I've been kind of spiraling like that too, because I know I mentioned it last episode, but I am working on the finally putting Werewolf together. I've almost done with the book, but like, holy fuck, is that book a depressing read?
Yeah, it's good, but fuck.
Yeah, I will warn you, if you haven't read it yet, let yourself read it at the pace you need to. I started reading it like, I'm going to get it done in like 2 days, and then I read for like an hour, and it's like, I need to go outside and hang out with my dog.
Yeah, just like, I'm going to lay down on my back in the grass and get lizard time, which is valid. Lizard time, super valid.
I've been depressed because I've had Nirvana stuck in my head.
Oh, no.
That would depress me, too.
I don't even know why.
Is it unplugged though? Is it the unplugged album?
No.
Damn.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that was really good. Listen to some good music. Hang out with your friends.
I don't know if they were the guests.
I thought they were.
They were the guests on the Korn one. It was Robert Smith. I can't remember who came out for. I actually don't know if they were doing. We're not an MTV history.
No,
podcast,
we're not. No, that's a different podcast.
But we are talking about music, and we have music at the beginning of our show.
Yeah, Paralyze. They're dope as fuck.
They make some pretty good music.
That's pretty fucking cool. Millions of Dead Cyborgs.
Yeah.
They do
There's
exist on
piles of
Bandcamp. And they have cool tunes on there, and you should give them $1 due if you can afford it.
Huge piles of dead cyborgs.
Hell yeah. They don't have souls, so we don't have to worry about Diablerizing them.
It's true.
It's very true.
They're just kind of meat machines.
Yeah. That is a different game system. That is a different game system.
Yeah, we don't quite have Mage yet.
Yeah, we don't have Mage yet. Maybe one night. Maybe one night we'll have Mage.
Oh, no.
But yeah, we exist on social medias. Are we gonna finally get off of Twitter? Because fucking Elon decided to be a fucking Nazi recently.
I don't pay attention. I just post and get off.
Okay, well, we give episode updates, but beyond that, we don't fuck around with that.
But yeah, unfortunately, it seems like that's still where most of our followers are.
Damn it, guys!
Followers,
get off
TikTok and hang out with us.
Get off Twitter.
Get off Twitter.
Get off Twitter.
Get onto TikTok.
Go on to Instagram. Go on Clock App.
Do something. Not the big black X.
If there's a social media that doesn't have a fuckload of Nazis on it that you can recommend us, we'd like to hear that.
Yeah.
But Instagram is Blank Bodies Pod, and TikTok is Blank Bodies Podcast. We do also have a Tumblr, but we've not had a lot of engagement, so if people want to help with that, that'd be cool. We have a Patreon, so if you think what we're doing is a cool and good thing, you can give us a couple $1 dues.
Yeah, there's all kinds of benefits there. You get everything from Discord titles. Our Discord is free to join, but you get special little name tags and a patron exclusive chat in there. We sometimes ask for updates or questions, like we're kind of banging out a script and like, hey, would you rather hear about this or this last minute? That doesn't quite make it to the poll. We do have patron polls.
Yeah.
You vote on what we do for our Patreon episode.
I try to share
monthly.
like little research like nuggets that I think are cool on the Patreon channel, just to be like, hey, I'm in the middle of researching. This is neat. Check it out. It's a preview for what's coming up, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and if you're on there, we now do patron exclusive episodes every month, and our episode for this month is the third part and final of our Microscope series, and that's coming out alongside this one. So,
Girl, yes. And also, if you reach certain levels of the Patreon, I will do character illustrations for you. I like doing illustrations. They're
Sarah
fun.
do art good.
I do art pretty good. Yeah, and then we're also trying to work on getting stuff prepped for the holidays, so there'll be like some goodies for the patrons.
Holiday goodies.
Holiday goodies.
We're going to tell you what they are, though.
No, you've been good noodles.
Pat,
You've been
pat.
corn kernels. We also do an interview series with various creators within the community. If you do things that are goth, punk, gaming, music, if you have similar vibes and you want to talk about your cool projects, we're happy to talk to you about your cool projects. Hit us up on the email blankbodies@gmail.com. We'd love to talk to you about your cool projects.
If you have fangs and you drink blood and you know someone who knows animalism that's willing to teach me animalism, let us know.
Why animalism
got-
specifically?
you got
Then
two
I can
dogs.
explain to my dogs why I need them to chill out when I need them to chill out. Or
Ah.
I can explain to my dogs, like, look, if you just give me the toy, I will throw it for you.
I
No
don't-
take, only throw. Anyways, goodbye.
bye.
Goodbye. Mwah.